Palmer Tom's Dogs 247 Sports joins us on a regular basis to break down Georgia. And of course, it's the big game that everybody's awaiting, Georgia and Clemson. And Palmer, when we look at the defense, two things that we wanted to hit on tie directly to one another. Of course, the defensive backfield has been a big topic of concern and so forth because of Tyreek Stevenson moving on to Miami. Two big pickups of the West Virginia and Clemson during the offseason. But then also the pass rush. Obviously, the pass rush can make the defensive secondary look awfully good if it's where it needs to be, minus Azeez Ojulari, who moves on with about 10 sacks and 12 and a half tackles for loss in a short season. So where's the development stand there?
Yeah, I'll start with the pass rush. Where Georgia feels very confident in their front seven. I think the question mark would be on the in that back end of the secondary. I think, like you said, replacing Azeez Ojulari is certainly an emphasis of theirs. You've also got Jermaine Johnson that left that outside linebacker room, transferred to Florida State. He was a very highly rated recruit out of Independence Community College, junior college guy. Georgia feels confident in what they've got with Adam Anderson. And I think a lot of Georgia fans are really expecting big things from him this year, given the fact that he's going to have more opportunities. He's got, he's going into his fourth year with the program. He's been an impact player each and every year, but he hasn't had the opportunities, the reps. He's been splitting time with Ojulari, Johnson. You had Brenton Cox in that room originally when those two guys came in together. Now he's obviously now at Florida, and then Nolan Smith as well, former number 1 ranked recruit in his 2019 signing class. And Anderson is a guy that I think Georgia fans feel can be the number 1, but you want to find some depth at that position. And especially given the fact that Georgia rotates so many guys, has rotated so many guys in the past in that room, it's going to be tough to just completely ignore that and go to just a one-man show there. And so I think Nolan Smith behind him, we've heard really great things about Smith coming out of this camp. We spoke with defensive coordinator and outside linebackers coach, actually, Dan Lanning, earlier this week on Tuesday, and he was saying that they've got, they're putting an emphasis on that pass rush, and they've got a pass rusher of the day that they, kind of name in their team meetings, and that Nolan Smith has been on there several times. That he feels, that one of the things that they really focus on and emphasize with their coaches is developing players, and that they feel very confident in the ways that Nolan Smith has developed from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3. Kind of very similar to Adam Anderson. I think with the extra opportunities, you can probably expect some extra production. Other guys in that room are Robert Beal, MJ Sherman. Those are two guys that have been around the program. Beal is an upperclassman. Sherman coming into his second year. I think expectations are also high with both of them. Two very talented guys that, given the opportunity, can probably perform. That just haven't had that opportunity because they've been buried down on the depth chart behind some of those guys that we've mentioned earlier. They're, again, neither one of them is probably going to be the, one in that top 2. But Georgia will probably be counting on them to make a play here or there. And it's certainly going to be important for, fans to be able to rely on them, the coaches to be able to count on them to make those plays if their name is called. And then going to the secondary, like we were talking about, I think, once again, that was we talked about left tackle being a question mark coming into camp and this spring as well. I think the other question mark would have been in the secondary and who was going to be the guys to step up at cornerback. And Georgia goes out and gets Darian Kendrick out of the transfer portal from Clemson. He's probably going to be the solidified number 1 starter at corner. After you lose guys like Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell, DJ Daniel, all 3 of those went to the NFL, and essentially 2 first-round picks, because you had Stokes in the first round and then Campbell with the first pick of the second round. 2 very, top 33 picks. You had 2 first-round corners out there the last 2 years. And really, even if you want to look further back, you had DeAndre Baker playing opposite of those 2 guys when they were youngsters as freshmen. I think Georgia has found a cornerback that they feel very confident in Darian Kendrick. He was not at the scrimmage yesterday. He had a friend of his pass away, so he was at a funeral. But Kirby Smart said that he has been with the team at practice. He's back with the team now. back in Athens, and that he has been really showing out and showing his ability to pick up on some things. I think that they were maybe a little bit concerned about the learning curve that Kirby Smart and this defense has in the secondary, and that Kendrick has blown their expectations out of the water. He comes from a system where they ran multiple different schemes in the secondary, and that he's really, really picking up on things well with Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, and new defensive backs coach Jamal Adai. Opposite of him, you're probably looking at a battle between Amir Speed is a veteran guy. Keely Ringo is a very talented guy, former #1 corner, and then Jalen Kimber as well. Nyland Green, I don't know that he would be in the battle for maybe the #1 spot, but certainly in the battle for playing time. Kamari Lassiter is a guy that they brought in this class alongside Green, and Lavassier Carroll, who was a running back out of IMG. They flipped him over to to play corner this spring, kind of out of a more of an emergency thing there, where they wanted to see him, especially because they know what they've got in the running backs room. They've got 5 guys there, and Carroll wasn't necessarily going to have the opportunities this year. They wanted to see what he could do in the secondary, and he's been looking great so far. Made some plays in the spring and has flashed in the fall as well. Going back to the starting position opposite of Kimber, I think you're looking at Speed. Opposite of Kendrick, you're looking at Speed, Kimber, and Ringo as those 3 guys. In yesterday's scrimmage, Speed and Ringo were the 2 starters, with Kendrick gone to the funeral, and Jalen Kimber was out with a shoulder injury. I think, again, Georgia fans feel that they've got enough. It's not a talent issue there. It's an experience issue. None of those guys have a ton of experience. I think Speed has the most experience of them all, being an upperclassman, a senior. But you're also looking at a very talented guy like Keely Ringo, who didn't get to play at all last year. So he's fresh on the scene, and learning the ways as time goes. Kirby Smart said yesterday that he hasn't essentially played tackle football in over 2 years because he missed out on spring practice in 2020 after his senior year of high school. They discovered a torn labrum that he suffered in high school, had surgery, missed all of the 2020 season, and then spring this year, you take it for what it is. It's spring practice, and you're not getting live reps. So he hasn't played a football game since he was a senior in high school, since the All-American game. And so I think Georgia is going. It's going to be a learning curve there at the cornerback position. Georgia's probably going to play all 3 of those guys in that opener, assuming that they're all healthy. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that they wouldn't be. I would imagine that Kimber's injury is probably something that he's going to be quickly back. We've seen photos of him out at practice this week, so probably a little bit dinged up there, and more of a precautionary thing to keep him out of the scrimmage. Like I said, I would imagine that all 3 of those guys are playing against Clemson, and then. At star, it's a battle between Tyke Smith, the West Virginia transfer, and Latavius Brini. Those 2 guys, Kirby Smart said, if you look at last year and what Georgia did at the star position, they played 2 guys. They played Tyreek Stevenson, like you mentioned. He transferred to Miami, and they played Mark Webb, who was drafted by the Chargers. Those 2 guys, maybe not from a skill set standpoint in Smith and Brini, maybe they're not the same as Webb and Stevenson there, but from the perspective of the idea of the fact that you can play them, both of them in a single game, that's going to be huge for Georgia because, again, with how much these secondary players, how much these corners are running and covering receivers, you want to have depth at that position. Brini and Smith also provide depth at safety behind Lewis Seen and Chris Smith, where Georgia's a little bit thin on numbers there. But certainly – those 2 guys are standing out from the pack. They're neck and neck, is what Kirby Smart said in terms of how they're battling at the star position. I would imagine that again, like that second corner position opposite of Kendrick, I would imagine you'll be seeing both Tyke Smith and Latavius Brini on the field at star against Clemson.
And of course, Palmer, on the coaching front, we've got a situation involving Scott Cochran, who unfortunately has to step away due to personal issues, and Will Muschamp, new to the coaching staff himself, has to take on another responsibility.
Yeah, Scott Cochran came to Georgia last year from Alabama, was the former strength and conditioning coach over there. An exciting hire when that happened, especially because with him being an on-field coach as the special teams coordinator, you can have him go into the living room of recruits and be, active in the recruiting. That is the case, and now will be the case with Will Muschamp, moving him from an off-field quality control defensive analyst kind of position on the field to taking over that special teams coordinator position. While Cochran is away from the program, it is huge to be able to add a guy with SEC head coaching experience, coached at Florida, coached at South Carolina, and now is on the field at Georgia. I think he was going to be a big part, and he's been helping in recruiting even in his off-field role, with the visits that these kids were doing this summer. Muschamp was a big part of that, as well as, on the field, he's been able to help some in some capacity. I think now that he is fully on the field as an on-field coach and is going to be able to be down there on game days, that's just an extra hand that you can have helping coach defense, offense, special teams. As a head coach, he's got experience with everything. And so, you can have him help him with the secondary. You can have him help him with, anything on defense with his defensive coordinator background. And then, like I said, as a head coach, he's certainly got some experience, got his hands in the offense some. In terms of his role with special teams, Kirby Smart said that, the head coaches, a lot of people think that if you're a head coach, you're probably staying away from special teams, that you're not, dealing with that on a daily basis. And that's just wrong. I think these head coaches are very involved in the game planning of special teams. And so, it's been a group effort for Georgia in the past with special teams. Scott Cochran was not the only person involved in coaching the special teams. Tight ends coach Todd Hartley helps with the punt coverage. And he's also got some special teams coordinating experience from his time at Miami. Now you've got Muschamp, who's got the experience as a head coach, that has been very involved in special teams, and you've got some off-field guys as well, that have some special teams experience, quality control kind of guys that can help, implement game plans, come up with new ideas. So it's going to be all hands on deck for Georgia when it comes to special teams, but it's certainly a big upgrade. Not necessarily an upgrade, but big news to be able to get a former SEC head coach on the field in a capacity like that.
Plenty of news and notes from Dogs Camp, courtesy Palmer Toms from Dogs 247 Sports. Palmer, we hope you know how much we appreciate you stopping by and breaking down the Dogs for us on a regular basis. And again, another great report. And I'm sure everybody around Georgia camp's excited about Clemson. The clock is ticking.
Yes, the clock is ticking. We're getting ever so closer by the day, and I'm sure I'll be back on here before too long to preview that game with you.